Good morning, dear students. Today, the next topic that we are going to study, is about the objectives of economic reforms. In the previous class, we have studied about the economic reforms since 1991, and there are 3 points, or three main economic reforms that has been taken place. That is called as the LPG, the liberalization, privatization, and globalization. And we also studied the impact of these decisions made in the uh, business environment. Now we are going to study the objectives of the economic reforms. What are the different objectives of this? So first one is modernization of industrial system of the country. So making the economic systems in our country to a modern system. Earlier the system of economic system of industrial system of our country was not very much systematic or not very high quality one. So means like most of the industries were handled by the government sector, public sector, and more concentration was given on the public sector. So there was no much private companies, and there was no any competitions. So because of that, there was no much economic development was not there. So in order to bring a change to this situation, the government has brought a very important changes in the economical world, and they made the decision to change the economic environment, or economic reforms has been taken. So that is the first one, modernization of the industrial system of the country. The next one, encouraging the private investment. So this like privatization was there, and so earlier, as I told you, the many more amount of money has been invested by the government sector. Only public sector companies were there, and the investment was made only by the government. And after the economic reforms, the purpose of or objective of economic reforms was to entertain the private people or private companies or private people to invest money into the industries. So many of the companies, there was liberalization, means that freedom was given for the people to start up the companies, new companies, private companies, and even the government sector companies can be like privatization was there. So the government companies whichever is running, which was like 100% of the shares were held by government, and it was made as more shares can be given to the private sector companies. So then more shares were issued to the private sector. So then private investment has been increased. So it was the another objective of economic reform was to increase the or encourage the private investment, increase the amount of private investment. Then the next one, attracting foreign investment. So earlier there was less amount of foreign investment because there are so much restrictions are there. Companies from outside was not permitted to invest in our country or our businesses, and now these restrictions was removed by globalization. So the anyone from any part of the world could invest in our country following the formalities. So there was it was to attract more amount of foreign investment. People from abroad also or even the companies, well established companies could invest their money into the Indian economy, so that foreign investment will be increasing. So that is another important objective of economic reforms, in order to increase the amount of foreign investment. Then next, the fourth point is that eliminating unproductive controls. So there was some kind of controls were there which was unproductive, means that which is not permitting the company to grow up. Okay, so there was some kind of controls given by the government. More control was given. So if so much restrictions are there, then we cannot freely work. So this kind of complications was there earlier. There was no freedom for the companies to enter freely. As I told you, the like even a small scale industry cannot sell or cannot directly become a large scale industry, so they cannot change. So and if companies which are running in one area has to restrict in that area itself, they cannot go to another place, and so there was so much amount of restrictions was there, and because of that the companies was unable to continue, or they cannot become productive. So these type of controls were removed so that the companies can become more productive, they can produce more output, and they can make a lot amount of profits. Then connecting Indian economy with the world economy. So by doing the globalization, the India has access to the world economy. Okay, so the Indian economy is connected with the world economy. So Indian products are started to export to other countries, and India started to import products from other countries. Even raw materials and finished products, all these type of things have started to come to India, to bring in India. And make in India project also means like products has been made in India. Okay, so bringing raw materials from or industrial units. So even foreign companies can start the industrial units in India. So by starting industrial units in India, we get a lot amount of employment opportunities, and we get income. Okay, so if even the companies are running from abroad, they come and live here. So these people, when people from abroad they come and stay here, then they work, then some part of the money is spent in our country, so this can increase our wealth. So that means when the companies are a lot of companies are coming up from they invest more money into our industry, then our economic development is possible. Then next is controlling fiscal deficit. So fiscal deficit comes into play when the total expenditure of the country exceeds its total income. So there are sometimes the country is facing fiscal deficits. Fiscal deficits means that the total expenditure of our country is more than the total income. So how much we get, more than that we have to spend. Okay, so like now we can say that there is a lot amount of fiscal deficits. See, because of the lockdown and coronavirus problems, people or industries or government is not getting sufficient amount of income, and the government has to spend more amount of money. Expenditure is more, whereas the income is less. Or even for our school we can say income is less and expenditure is more. So teacher salaries to be paid, electricity bill and other expenditures are there, but teachers parents are not ready to pay the fees. Then in expenditure is more and income is less. So this type of problems will be there. So in not only in schools, in every companies the same situation is there. My brother is working in a hotel, and he was saying that there's like now coronavirus problem is there. People are not going for tour, and they are not ready to stay in the hotels because it is risky. So and people from abroad, they are not coming. Even foreign passengers and all are not coming. They are, most of the customers were from foreigners. Those who are coming, they used to stay in their hotels. Otherwise, like their hotel, one room rent for their room is starting from 5,000 per day. So people from foreign only mostly ready to take 5,000 to 20,000, 30,000 like that per day room rents are there. So normal person like we are going, we may not be going to pay 5,000 rupees or 10,000 rupees for one day. So here people are not there, and expenditure is there. Maintenance of the hotel and salary of the employees, everything has to be given. So for most of the companies, they are facing this type of problems, and for as a country as a whole, there is a fiscal deficit because expenditure is more and income is less. So this and earlier at the time of before 1990s, there was also a lot amount of this type of problems because most of the companies were handled by the government's public sector, and these companies were not running successfully. So the expenditure was there, but that much amount of income was not there. So this money has to be spent by the government treasury, and it was a huge burden for the government. So when these type of companies were privatized, then that much expenditure has been reduced. So those companies where more money has been invested by the private sector, and so after that, when the company has been privatized, then the company started to become more profitable. Earlier, when the company was in the control of government, then this was not profitable, but when it became private, then it started to become profitable, because people started using more pressure, or managers started using more pressure on the workers to work. And if you go in a government company, you can understand that people simply they don't want to work. Okay, if you get a government job, first thing is that you want to take rest, isn't it? So for that only you get a government job. When you are in private sector, this is not possible. Okay, you have to work. If you want to take rest, then get lost from the job and take rest. That is the policy of private sector. So when the companies has been changed to a private sector, then people were compelled to work. If they don't work, then they will lose their job. So that is why they will work. And if in a government sector, if they don't do job, then also it is not going to affect their job. So they will not do the job. Okay, when there is no compulsion, then people will not be ready to do the job. So there was a lot amount of losses. Then next one is the increasing foreign exchange reserves. So when we give more, when we start doing import exports and so on, then or when the foreign countries started investing more money into our industry, our Indian business, then we started the foreign exchange reserve has been increased. So that is also another objective of this one, to increase the foreign exchange reserves. The next one is controlling unprofitable industrial units in the public sector. So there was some kind of unproductive business units were there. So some companies which were unproductive was there. So they could control these unprofitable businesses. So there were some kind of businesses which was not profitable. So they could cancel these or they could sell these companies, public sector companies, to private sector, so that these kinds of burden will be removed. So there was a control over the unprofitable industrial units in the public sector. So these are the objectives of economic reforms. Okay, so thank you so much.